Despite it being a rather cold and snowy March, the robins decide that now's the time to start nesting. The female spends several days building the nest before laying an egg each morning until her clutch of 4 eggs is complete. For the next 16 days, she then incubates the eggs, leaving the nest only occasionally to feed. On the 29th of March, the first of the tiny chicks finally emerge from the eggs. The parents begin feeding them, and within an hour all 4 eggs have hatched. Given that they have no feathers to keep themselves warm, the female continues to sit on them. At this stage they're blind and very vulnerable. The feeding continues, sometimes a little too enthusiastically, with the parent birds sometimes bringing in insects bigger than the chicks themselves. Not surprisingly, there are no takers for this particular meal. The chicks grow stronger each day, and the parent birds busily hunt for food to bring back to the nest. The female keeps a close eye on the temperature of the chicks and broods them when needed. Despite their size, the chicks' appetites are substantial, and the parent birds continually bring them food, which is eagerly devoured in seconds. After another couple of days, the chicks are covered in a black down to keep them warm. This means the female can spend more time away from the nest during the day. Of an evening, she returns to the nest to keep the chicks warm overnight. Soon, the beginnings of tiny wing feathers start to appear. The enthusiastic feeding continues, but this time the chicks are happy to swallow a caterpillar the size of their head. It's not surprising they need a lot of clearing up after. Brooding becomes a little more difficult for the female now that the chicks have grown. The constant fidgeting underneath her seems to be quite a distraction. The chicks are regularly preening their newly sprouting feathers, and the parent birds continue to keep a close eye on their young. Just 2 days later, on the 5th of April, the young birds are looking very different. Their eyes are now open and they are completely covered in black down. The weather is now a lot warmer, and the chicks try to lose heat by sitting with their beaks wide open. Over the next couple of days, the chicks start to look a lot more like adult birds. Their feathers are now through, and the constant preening and stretching is a good sign that they're getting ready to fly. The nest is too small for them now, but they make do by standing on top of one another. 13 days since the chicks hatched, and it's incredible to see just how much they've grown in that time. From an egg about the size of a 5p coin, they're now almost the size of adult robins. The parents have decided that it's now time for them to leave the nest and try to tempt them by offering them food and then flying off with it. The chicks seem a bit confused and scared by the prospect and huddle tightly down into the nest. The ominous cackling of a nearby crow doesn't exactly make the outside world sound appealing. But on the 11th of April, the first of the young birds disappears from the nest and is quickly followed by the second. The third, still sitting on his sibling's back, is a little hesitant but makes his escape shortly after. The fourth seems to wonder where everyone's gone and decides it'd be a good idea to get out too. The first stage of their lives is now complete, and they won't return to the nest again, except perhaps when it's time to raise young of their own.